Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And folks, once upon a time, there was a studio named Pixar Animation. And Dragon, I don't know if you remember this. Well, of course you remember this. Surely you remember this. I remember this. There was a time when Pixar used to come out with movies that would genuinely excite people. But that was the past. All right, so yeah, folks, Elio, Dragon, I like the movie. Don't get me wrong. I want to start out right there before I even get into the box office thing. I like the movie a lot, actually. I think this is. I don't necessarily think this is like it's similar tier to Luca for me. I don't quite think it matches up to Luca. I would still say it's probably one of the better Pixar movies of the 2020s so far. That being said, holy crap, this movie's marketing was a mess, and this movie's box office is an even bigger mess, and it's a shame. And I feel like, Dragon, in this situation, like, I'm as frustrated as you are that I feel like a lot of people are kind of like writing this thing off like, oh, well, it didn't get good box office numbers, so I guess it's a bad movie. And I'm like, no, not necessarily. So, yeah, I personally really like this thing, Dragon. What do you think?
So, I was intrigued by Elio since the teaser. Being Adrian Molina's solo directorial debut, of course, the man who was kind of the co-director on Coco, very much overshadowed by Lee Unkrich. I'm not saying that negative. Many times it's the story of the co-directors. We have quality co-directors at Pixar, but there's a lead guy, and usually when we do sequels or such, look at Finding Dory. Angus MacLane was on Finding Dory, but I understand obviously he's taken point. But again, quality co-director, and all going all the way back. We have like co-directors that flourish. Like Lee Unkrich was a co-director, and he ended up doing Toy Story 3 and Coco. So it's all relative. So the point being, it's always great to see a co-director kind of step into the spotlight and really get their big moment. And I think you and I, but I think in general, a lot of us really love like seeing the Pixar director with the passion project, that personal thing that is all about, it's them putting their soul into their big, like we're not attached to kind of a necessarily kind of a franchise entry. We're not, it's very much kind of an original Pixar film that is kind of like them trying to make their mark and say something about, their life in the film, like kind of the ultimate kind of a scrapbook for the tomes of cinema.
Sure.
And, I was looking forward to that here. It's kind of a rite of passage with the Pixar directors, with the greats. And finding out that they pulled him from Elio for Coco 2, I was a little concerned. I won't lie to you, I was. But we had two quality directors that kind of took over the project, with Dome Shi and Madeline Sharafian. And, it's... Which, when that happens, and this is not the first time that's happened with Pixar. We've had, projects that have kind of shifted, directors before. And again, either way, they start with quality directors and went to other Pixar directors. And sometimes you get the good dinosaur. Other times you get Ratatouille.
Right.
So
right.
that was the big question, like, where is this gonna end up between those two? And I went in clean. Very conscious that there was not a lot of marketing on this. I went in there; it was an empty theater.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Essentially, there was only Tiki. I walked in. Mind you, this is like day one, though, and the day they don't advertise. This is like which, honestly, for the animated movies,
Thursday
is kind of
screening.
Yep, Thursday screening. Which you got to remember. Again, the Marvel movies or the superhero movies like Superman, Fantastic Four, they're going to be packed to the rafters on Thursday because that's a given. But the animated films, I'm getting the sense that honestly across the board, the animated films probably
like Friday and Saturday nights are when those really pop off.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like you got people that are like highly anticipating all the superhero movies, so they're obviously they're going to jump on Thursday. Animated films, I don't think have the same luxury, it seems. And that seems to be, so again, it's kind of like a benefit, like, well, you just kind of come into a Thursday without like a big crowd. So, I mean, there's a benefit, but it was really, Tiki, it was sad. It was like Iron Giant levels of sad in terms of the underperformance here. It was just like, I came in, there was only like a lady and her kid, and the kid wasn't really having it with the movie. So it was So it was like,
Although I will say that I saw it at 10:30 at night. I did the double feature with 28 years later. That was a trip in its own right. And to be fair, there were two different families, two different like mother, kid, and father situations at 10:30 at night. So I'm like, all right, for 10:30 at night on a Thursday, that's respectable, I guess. Look at it glass half full, I guess.
I wasn't complaining necessarily about the empty theater, but it still was as kind of like that Brad Bird going to the screening of Iron Giant, just kind of that bit of like that underpinning of like, oh no, that's not good. So empty theater aside, I watched it, man. I had that magic feeling watching a Pixar film that I like to feel, where I'm sucked in. I'm seeing the artistry before me. I'm loving. I always love that feeling when I see a Pixar film. So that's it's a warm nostalgic feeling. So I had a really good time watching it. I was invested in Elio's story. You had some cool alien designs, some great technology. I see where we streamline things from the original concepts. That was the main thing I had going. This is not a criticism. This is kind of a unique experience kind of thing. Going into it knowing like the production thing ahead of it, and it's not even just like knowing about it.
If I'm wrong, but in the original trailer, don't we have like Elio's mom in the mix?
Well, that's what I was getting. So
yeah.
So Olga is his mom in the original version of this film.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a tremendous. That's what I'm saying. So this is the first time. I think this is the first time we've had the clearest picture of like. Usually they like Andrew Stanton always like to call it the 11th hour change. Now, mind you, this is a little bit more than an 11th hour change, but it's kind of the same idea of like sometimes in a Pixar trailer you will see a sequence that is then kind of reworked. Two main examples that you probably remember. In Finding Nemo, they had like this thing where you saw like the krill, going the opposite direction. Like they're krill, like they're coming towards them, and the whale's coming towards them. But if you think about it in the movie, that would make a lot of sense. They changed it in the end movie. Where okay, they can't be snuck up on by the whale unless the whale's coming from behind them. So that's an 11th hour change. That's kind of a realization. Like Wall-E saving Eve, it was reversed. So in the movie, in the trailer, you see a little bit of Wall-E saving Eve, and in the end movie, they swapped it to Eve saving Wall-E. So that kind of stuff. So that's as much as we've seen in like a finished product, like it's in the trailer kind of a thing. But this is like a full-on. This is a very unique thing of like, oh my god, so much of this original premise has so many key components of this film has changed, and we saw like a lot of that just kind of intact.
Elio just casually like chumming it up with the Brad Garrett character.
Yeah, huge shift, like that. And there's like we'll get into it, but that was the intrigue I did have.
And Warden was in the original pitch.
That's exactly. We'll get to that. But that's what I'm saying. Like we streamlined things, so it kind of added to the experience as a Pixar fan watching it. Now, I don't think it overwrote my experience watching it, but I don't know. It's kind of hard to say on that because I still enjoyed the movie as what was presented in the end result, but. I am left wondering, what the Molina, like the full-on Molina version looked like. That's not to say, like, some of the people involved in this, like, presumably Sharafian was involved in this movie and then got bumped up to one of the co-directors. Like, Domeishi, I feel, was more of like, okay, we need help, Domeishi. You did Turning Red. Can you help us out here? But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought it was again. These are the kind of things I live for with Pixar, kind of knowing behind the curtain of what goes on with these movies sometimes. And this is like the most like behind the curtain in a sense you can kind of get knowing like, oh man, this is like in the behind the scenes when I'm seeing the movie. This is interesting,
right?
So,
right.
So yeah, I mean, look, I don't think it's a slam dunk like Onward or Luca was. I mean, I don't think it eclipses how much I really like those two films in terms of the recent era of Pixar. But
I think for me, it's pretty neck and neck with Onward, with Luca being a step above.
I think it's close. I'm saying I think they're in like it's like neck and neck to a degree.
Yeah.
Think, it's like Luca and Onward. I think were the best of what we got in that kind of like in that frame, because Luca I still find so rewatchable and so fun. It's like
Luca to me is easily the best Pixar movie of the 2020s. I don't give a shit what anyone says.
I love Luca, and Onward I think is that in terms of all the Pixar passion projects, Onward has a lot in there, which I really
Onward clearly has the most like emotional depth to it. It's just like I feel like feel like the story with Onward is a little rocky in places.
Oh, fair enough. The point being, two really great movies, and I feel Elio is in line with that, so I really do like it. So I mean, I just don't know if it's like I definitely don't like it as much as I do Luca, and it doesn't really.
I hate to keep trumping on this, but like, I definitely think it's better than Soul. I do not particularly like Soul. I'm sorry.
All right, fine. You don't like.
I might not have a Soul Dragon.
Yeah. Kick the dead black man while he's down, Tiki. Yeah.
Yeah, let's turn him into a fucking cat for half the runtime, because that's what Disney does with their black characters, apparently.
But he's a cool cat, Tiki.
Yeah, all right.
Anyway, the point being, I still think it's a winner of an original Pixar film, which it's kind of like the silly debate going on right now, like the whole sequels versus original Pixar, where it's like, everyone's trying to blame each other, and it's like, come on, guys, let's maybe if we just saw the movie instead of debating it, I don't. Point being, I enjoyed it. I'm left wondering how different the movie might have been, but hopefully the home video release will add to the experience on that one. But yeah.
All right. Okay, so Dragon, I'm sure you have a little bit of background there.
Well, we don't really do that on a fresh release, Tiki. We don't really.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Well, we'll come. A little bit. Well, we'll loop that into the conversation when we get into like moments that were probably changed compared to what they were. All we know really is what went on in the teaser. So we'll.
So I want to just get off the bat my least favorite element of this movie, and it applies mostly to the humans. I really don't like the character designs in this thing. I really think that the character designs in this thing are maybe some of the laziest, like, human. Like, they look good, I guess, but at the same time, Dragon, I don't remember who said this. Maybe it was Campia, but they said that the human designs look like a Grubhub ad, and after I heard that, unfortunately, I could not unsee it. I don't know. There's something about the human designs in this movie that just really feel like unpolished to me. And that's like one of my biggest kind of like roadblocks for this.
First of all, I'm just
say, honestly, at the end of the day, it's a minor nitpick.
First of all, let me say, I hate the Grubhub thing. It's been going around. Like, come on.
Tell me you don't see it, though.
No, I mean, look, I disagree with it. I see what they're talking about, but I don't think. I mean, here's where it is. Okay,
like these characters are not as stylishly designed as the ones in Luca. They're just.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Pixar has been playing with this design, which is going on. Honestly, it's interesting that it's been kind of going on for a couple films in a row. They've been playing with this new house, and I know there's like an animation software we saw in the behind the scenes of Win or Lose that they've been having. There's this new character design software they've been playing with. I don't know if it's the ideas they've had this, and they've been kind of like restructuring it per movie and project to kind of get them to. That's why we have such a similar look, or it's something they're trying. But think about it. Luca, I would call it the most Miyazaki look in terms of like kind of a blend of Pixar and Miyazaki in terms of how those characters are designed. That's at least how I look at it.
Then I feel like Turning Red was like less Miyazaki and more just like straight anime, and I think that also worked.
But you see what I mean? They're kind of in the same kind of
I feel like they're experimenting around with the same sort of style, and this just happens to be the movie using that style that I just don't really think landed, if that makes sense.
Well, that's it. We have like 4 projects, so 3 of them are very much, kind of going from kind of that kind of Pixar Ghibli fusion, which then we go in a more anime direction with Turning Red. I'm saying it's progression. Then we have the most exaggerated version of it with Win or Lose. And then we have this, and this is kind of trying to blend it. It feels like we're trying to kind of go back on the spectrum a little bit in terms of like how much we're stretching
it's a little bit more of a grounded Win or Lose look, I
guess.
That's
and that may be, it's kind of not an uncanny valley thing, but you know what I mean? We're trying to dial back the exaggeration of Win or Lose. We're trying to kind of like make it a little bit more grounded than Luca, and this is the result, which unfortunately I think now is like, the Grubhub kind of ads and everything, and like the whole AI thing and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
They're trying again. It's not really Pixar's fault. It's the fact that everyone's
honestly, Pixar should be flattered because, frankly, Dragon, all the AI comparisons that's just because Pixar is like the best in the game, and so AI is going to copy Pixar.
And
So
that's the thing. So
it's
that's
kind
not
of a
really.
snake eating its own tail situation there. I'm not really bothered by the AI thing.
And that's what I mean, because they're doing like the whole like Ghibli and Pixar have been the victims of the AI thing, where everyone's like
Mm.
doing like the little art filter thing. Where
Ghibli,
it's
I
like,
feel a lot worse for,
yeah,
frankly. Like poor Hayao. I'm
and
sure Hayo's having a heart attack over
I've
the
I've heard
AI.
that he's not happy, but some people have blown it where he's really unhappy. No, he's just kind of generally that unhappy with
I can just picture him just being like just generally grumpy old man about the situation. I don't think he's like
well,
throwing a fit or
well,
anything.
no, he would just do what he always does. He would say, "Ah, baka."
Right.
Anyway, but so yeah, I feel people have been dogging on the whole like Grubhub thing. Where again, it's like that's just where we're at now in the culture. It's not, it's Grubhub stealing Pixar's
Yeah,
thunder. It's not.
like I said, I just think compared to the designs of something like a Turning Red or Win or Lose or a Luca,
Yeah,
this is
you're right. It's not as good as However, the
yeah.
alien designs, I think I thought we did like a
The
nice
alien
organic.
design save it, and we'll get into the alien
Yeah,
stuff. I want to start with the Earth stuff. So, Dragon, one of the things that I've heard some people have it as a criticism. I honestly feel like it's a little bit like it's nice to have another character like this, although it is definitely very similar. But Elio, by all intents and purposes, he's kind of like a male Lilo, like down to the living situation being very similar, down to the fact that he literally like his first move when it comes to attacking a bully is to go for a bite. I mean, I don't know. I really and of course I think Elio and Lilo, probably Elio a little bit more so, is a little bit autism coded, just in the sense of like the space thing is such an obvious like, special interest hyperfixation for him. Um yeah, what do you think of the Lilo comparison, especially in this first act we have?
well, let me put it to you this way. So again, Pixar's are always we've been glowing about the strong Pixar openings, and I think this is kind of in the ballpark of that
This
here.
has a
Where I think
kick ass opening, man. It really does. I genuinely, the opening of this film kind of took me by surprise how invested I was right off the bat.
strong opening's always good with a Pixar
Uh-huh.
film, and so it's the idea we nailed the kid acting. Honestly, the animation in this opening really floored me. This is the character animation. It's the fact that we nailed the acting on the kid. It's a kid dealing with loss and loneliness. We have the way we directed this scene. You're seeing like it's under the table. Where like we have exposition, but it's carried by the camera angle almost,
Mhm,
where we
mhm.
see like we're focusing on the legs, and we see that we kind of pan up from the kid. We're trying to get him to eat. Olga is the aunt in a very Nani-esque situation. That's where the Lilo and Stitch comparison really is at its strongest for me, where Olga is absolutely in Nani's position here. And by proxy, then it becomes, there's a lot of Lilo in Elio in a few degrees. And yeah, I honestly, with the whole
Like I said,
coding,
it's mostly the biting thing. That's the biting and the hyperfixation.
well, yeah, and then with the
Not to
hyperfixation,
mention the fact that he does get wrapped up in like sci-fi shenanigans as well. You gotta include that.
yeah, I will say this. I think almost, I don't know. I'm not gonna. It's kind of hard for me to say. Maybe even more than Lilo to a degree. I could kind of see more of like kind of maybe a potential kind of coding of things in the opening with
Well,
Elio.
I definitely think it's got to be more intentional than Lilo, because I really think that back when Lilo and Stitch first came out, I feel like that whole thing is very much like a happy accident. I think Chris Sanders will own that. Like he didn't really write the character of Lilo to be autistic, but like so many people in the autism community, including myself, just resonate so strongly with that character, maybe more so than arguably any other character in media, even though she's technically canonically not autistic, but really spiritually she very much is so,
Well, it's kind of like the whole. It's kind of like
Yeah,
the
go
Goofy
ahead.
movie. It's kind of like the Goofy movie thing, where as we learned, the Goofy movie has quite the black fan base, and it was kind of like
Yeah,
an
exactly. It's
unintentional
it's
thing, but it's
very
great.
similar to that. Yeah.
So, I mean, in that regard, this one I can't. Again, I won't really know until we get like a commentary or something on this. But I don't know if
I'd be
maybe it was.
surprised if autism wasn't like a factor with Luca, or I'm
Well,
sorry, with Elio, with his
yeah,
character. I'd be surprised.
that's what I'm saying because it's like the little touches that really made me think. I usually don't like to read in that sort of thing. But you know what? There's a lot of like seeing him with the little astronaut figures and that kind of stuff. Is like it
Uh-huh.
seems.
Eli, if you're in the chat still, I don't know if you've seen Elio yet, but I'd be curious what your perspective would be on that. Anyway.
Well, either way, the point being, intentional or no, I like how we're through this kid, we're seeing like just how a kid deals with the loss and loneliness, and basically how we see Elio has a lot of kind of social issues kind of socializing because again of that loneliness. So the exposition we play it through this camera angle where we kind of have Olga's position. We establish that the kid lost his family, and my favorite little detail, the best comparison I have is it feels like a Brad Bird edit, and I really love it. Where it's kind of like it's like Annie and Hogarth from The Iron Giant, where be a thing where we cut away and Hogarth's not there. It's kind of what we do with Elio just disappearing. So the premise of this movie is what I really want to hit on. The opening I think does so well and just sets up I was so buckled up and I was like I'm so ready for wherever this movie is going to take me. It's the idea that the kid, after seeing the Voyager 1 record, Elio, he falls in love with space. He hyperfixates on space, what have you, because it connects the whole "Are we alone?" question. The idea that this leads to his desire to be abducted by aliens, and just the idea that I love applying "Are we alone?" to the human experience. And
Yeah, totally.
I just love that because it is, again, when you lose somebody, you feel the most alone you've ever felt. So applying that to the pursuit of like space, and it's kind of like looking for something that might not be there, and it's kind of like we forge human connections, how we look for somebody, and we're kind of looking for a kind of an intangible kind of thing. But again, it's something that seems very tangible. The fact that we have space travel, so it's kind of like just the parallels that we're making to the human experience with the sci-fi. I found to be really clever and just really like, oh man, I never would have thought to do that. That is the fact that because you could look
I
at
mean, that right there, what you're describing is very much like the Pixar secret sauce, like at work. And seeing that like so early in the movie, I was just like, all right, maybe we've got something here. Maybe we've got something.
And that's got to be some again, now Molina, again, a lot of what his initial pitch is in this movie. You can see it in this movie. Like Elio himself is very much intended to be, at least the core premise is intended to be Adrian Molina as a kid. At least to a degree, like the idea, like he moved, or I want to say, like he grew up on a military base, so that's very much what the living situation is coming from this movie. So I don't know, just hitting the core of this movie so early on, and just like that Pixar sell right there, and just the idea you could have taken this movie very surface level. Okay, kid gets abducted by aliens, shenanigans ensue, but the fact that we added that human element to it right at the front is like,
you know what? I'm gonna give you a hot take right off the bat here. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
I think that this movie uses the whole like archival recordings and stuff like that better than WALL-E does.
Oh boy, that is a hot take. Oh wow.
I'm sorry, Greg, but the fucking Carl Sagan got to me.
I love that.
I'm just gonna plant this flag right now. I think the ending of this movie is fucking glorious.
Yeah,
specifically because of the Carl Sagan stuff,
yeah,
and just like the whole the reuse of the what I assume is a real archival recording.
Yeah, no, it's real. They credited it at the end of the movie.
Yeah, of the kids saying, like greetings from the planet Earth. Like that is so perfect. That fucking gives me chills. Just how well that fits in with the like. I don't know, man. There's something about that. Like, whereas with Wally's great. It establishes Wally's character and everything just fine. At the end of the day, I kind of feel like we lean on the Hello Dolly thing a little too heavily. It almost kind of becomes a little bit of a tone.
Well, a love story.
But yeah, I know it's a love story. That movie is also very infamous for killing the movie musical, so that's another like weird element of that whole thing. I don't know. I really fell in love with like this movie, like the sense of place and role building, just with those setting it within the kind of like that 70s sort of like post moon landing space fascination. I something just really sung with me for that.
I mean, yeah, I love it's the little touches, Tiki. It's the fact that we have like the real Voyager 1, like
Uh-huh.
record thing, and everything. I love
I love
this.
that touch, man. I love the fact that, again, I love that we're pulling from real life stuff and incorporating it into the story. That's great.
So what's really great is that in the modern setting that we're setting this in, it's really great seeing like we've turned that record into an exhibit. And there's a little bit of like a holographic show going on there that leads you to space. It looks great.
I want Epcot to build a goddamn planetarium. Do it, you cowards.
Okay, so something we got to mention, I really want to mention that kind of goes hand in hand with a lot of the heart of this movie, right? A lot of like kind of like the fascination with space. Rob Simonson's score on this film is fantastic.
Oh, excellent score! Excellent score.
So
Yeah.
Rob Simonson's
Are we just Pixar shills, Dragon? Because so far, that's what this podcast feels like.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to say not a shill, just very much I'm staunched in Pixar without
I mean,
question.
I'll talk shit about Soul all day long, and most people won't. So
That's the thing. So I don't know if we're shills, but
Well, I'm just saying, like it kind of like off the top, I don't know what to tell you.
It's saying something.
It has a really strong opening, and there's a lot of stuff to praise about it.
Yeah.
Anyways, yes, the music is wonderful.
So Rob Simonson's score, the guy who did the Deadpool and Wolverine score.
Nice. Any other notable stuff he's done?
Yeah, but I was kind of dialing in on the Deadpool Wolverine. He's done stuff before it though. God, he's
no disrespect to Deadpool.
Oh wait, Stranger Things. He did Stranger Things.
There we go. Okay, that's really cool. That actually really fits with the
See, that's how they got him, because Sean Levy worked on Stranger Things,
and
that's yeah.
Nice.
Anyway, so Simonson's got this beautiful theme, and I love. He has like a main theme for Elio that really complements. Here's what I love about the main theme of this movie that we hear all over the place, and is that it complements space well because it feels vast, but it feels like a vast loneliness with an underpinning of hope. That's kind of the best way I could summarize how the score feels. Like it just kind of grabs you and makes you feel.
That's a really good way to put it. Very bittersweet, very melancholy, for sure.
It's like anything could be out there, but it's the pursuit of anything being out there that's the drain of like
for the whale.
Little bit, yeah.
Anyways.
So we have this montage where Elio, the idea he goes to the beach daily to get abducted, and it's kind of like it's kind of like Lilo with like photographing the tourist. One could say it's a little or feeding Pudge the fish, but kind of. Anyway, so we have Bryce.
They didn't even get the goddamn sandwich right in the remake.
Wait, what do you mean they didn't get the sandwich?
I mean, they don't have the joke about feeding Pudge tuna. They don't have that in the remake at all.
For a moment, I thought you meant she actually fed him tuna, which, oh my god, that was like a
no. I'm just peeved that they don't have the what is tuna? It's fish. Like so much stuff from the remake is just stripped away for no reason.
Anyways,
this is the better Lilo and Stitch of June of 2025.
A lot of people have pointed out the odd similarity between, like, hey, we have the other kid alien, kind of.
And then we have another Chris Sanders live action joint in theaters with How to Train Your Dragon. It's a very Lilo and Stitch centric summer.
Oh yeah. Okay, so we have a montage. We see kind of establish what Elio does on the regular. So we have Bryce in the ham radio club. So Bryce, seemingly a nice kid, and he is.
I kind of wish that this character was a little bit more developed. I kind of get why we have to get to the space stuff quickly, but I do like the angle of Bryce himself being a potential friend for Elio, but him also having a friend that's just going to be like a problem and a bully, because I feel like that's a very relatable situation.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. So again, this is honestly the thing with Bryce is when it really kind of becomes apparent. Like Elio does have trouble, socializing. Or we see he's just instantly he basically takes the ham radio. And he doesn't want anything to do with the kid. He just really wants the ham radio.
Even though the kid is like very obviously like earnestly invested in the alien stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then of course we have that jerk Caleb.
Yeah, Caleb. I don't know. I don't have much to say about. He's basically just like generic bully number 12. He's probably one of the weaker characters in the movie.
Absolutely. The main thing is he damages the eye. He's the reason we have the bandaged up eye for the movie.
Which I will say, I mean, we're gonna get into the clone stuff. I'm sure you probably enjoy the clone stuff as much as I do,
I do.
but that eye patch stuff, that the eye patch was a genius way to kind of like deal with that.
Yep. By the way, I'm banking on that being a Domeishi pitch of
The
like
clone, yeah, that feels like a Domeishi thing for sure, for sure.
Well, honestly, no, you're right. That might be Domeishi, but I tell you, the one that really feels like Domeishi is like we have like hey, don't don't touch the eye for like 2 weeks. He's instantly scratching the eye.
Right, that too.
Like
Yeah.
that feels like such like a Domeishi joke. Anyway, so let's talk about the
Just
parental.
the dark humor with the clone stuff very much reminds me of the dark humor in Bao.
No, you're right about that. That does feel like that too. So I mean, overall, a lot of that feels like a lot of the like the clone day to day. I thought you meant like literally like the clone reveal scene, but yeah, like all the clone day to day does feel.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
All right, so what about the parental struggles here? So I love how we examine parenting via Olga and Grygon.
Can we just like the name Olga is forever tainted to us, Dragon? Can we just acknowledge that? just get it out there. Just like it's the elephant in the room.
Because of Hey Arnold.
Yes.
Olga.
I will never meet an Olga in my life without thinking about that character. That name is just tainted. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I always think of a certain loved one when I think of Olga.
Right.
Anyway, so we have Olga and Grygon here. I really like how we examine kind of parenting and kind of the hurdles of parenting through them. Where Olga, she is doing her best, but and I love how we see she's denying herself like the career path, and the goal of going to space that she wants. But she's not.
See Lilo and Stitch? That's the way to do a character where it's like they have aspirations and goals, but they're not letting it get in the way of actually raising the kid. You see live action Lilo and Stitch? I actually don't really think the marine biology stuff is that bad in Lilo and Stitch now that I've seen it, but I digress.
All right. So she's having a lot of doubts, and those doubts kind of manifest in a very poor call. She makes the very impulsive call to send them to the sleepaway camp, which basically is kind of a shorthand of boarding school. Which, of course, boarding school, big no. It's bad.
As others have pointed out, though, I feel like it's impressive because, like, a lot of other movies would kind of like have the point that Elio goes to space be like the night before he goes to boarding camp. But no, it's like we send his ass there. Like, I like that we go that far.
Now, here's something. I in the changes to the movie. I can't verify this yet, mind you, until we get hopefully a Blu-ray or something. I can't confirm or deny this, but I suspect I think we streamlined the whole sleepaway camp thing. Like he very clearly has like the uniform that he has at the camp has kind of like a sash that you put badges on. And we don't really do anything with that except for like the main, we have like badges worked into the alien technology, obviously. Now it feels like maybe if we had the camp thing like fleshed out more, which it feels like based on that teaser, he was at camp, like maybe voluntarily or something. He was there.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like we would have that would have been more of a central thing of him trying to get badges or something.
I could even see it. I could even see the movie starting with him at camp.
That's what I'm saying. It feels like originally we would have maybe started there, but again, I can't really say with authority. But it just feels like we have that sash there only for one explicit purpose in the version that we have here. Like he wants that the ambassador badge.
Mm-hmm.
So we need something to pin it on. Ergo, we need him to have that.
But I will say the movie does paint a really good picture of why Elio is like so desperate to get to space. Like you get his hyperfixation, you get his loneliness. I don't know. I think they do a really good job with that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, I just think it was such a bad call on Olga's part. And again, this is not an issue with the movie, just like a point in like, oh man, Olga really made a bad call. Or something like the kid has trouble socializing to sleepaway camp, just to kind of get him get him out of her hair to a degree.
Basically, yeah.
Now, mind, she's not just doing it cruelly. She's at wit's end. She doesn't know what to do, and this is like after Elio's kind of gotten her in the hot water at work, so she's kind of at the end of her rope.
Mm-hmm.
So the abduction, this is where I want to really kind of get into some of the core differences we have here. So we really restructured the new direction, based on the trailers here, and that originally Elio didn't want to be abducted. That's a big difference that we have in the original version to what we have now, at least based on that teaser. Where we have the big gag being like he seems to be like this sweet little kind of like scared kid, like trying to literally call his mom, and that's the other thing. And all it was the mom. Then we kind of made her the aunt, basically because we needed to have the whole loss and loneliness angle, which again seemed to be a good call. I will give them that. That does seem to be a good call. They really kind of emphasize like the whole loneliness and the pursuit and everything, and that yes, it's very much riding Lilo and Stitch's coattails to a degree, but still,
right.
It helps the movie. It helps the themes of the movie, so I'll give it a pass.
No, I agree. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess there are living situations where that happens. I mean, it makes sense.
I moved in with my grandparents when I was like 12 years old. My parents didn't die, but that was just the more practical living situation for me at the time.
Sure. So the fact they didn't want to be abducted, we have like the whole "no, thank you," and we have like a gag in this movie. We restructured to "thank you."
Right, yeah.
That sums up the differences of the movie right there. Like, okay,
it really does, yeah.
In one version, he's just thrown into this situation. He's just kind of rolling with it. The other one is like, okay, he's making deliberate choices. I think it's all. So we have we're not just doing changes willy nilly just because it's a different director. We're doing changes because
But I like where it's smart tweaks, and it's tweaks that I feel like it doesn't really radically alter a lot, but it enhances what's already there, I think.
And I gotta admit, these are the changes that are like the just thrill the animation geek in me. Like, oh, look what they did to strengthen the story! Isn't that cool? That's let's see. So here's I have a feeling we didn't have Gunther Melmack in the original version. So Gunther Melmack, by the way, I love his name because Melmack, of course, is a reference to Elf.
Oh, okay, nice.
Which I will bet you dollars to donuts that was a Domeshi pitch. Had to be, like her pitching, Elf, just of all the things, feels so on brand for,
I will say Melmack feels a little bit half baked as a character.
But that's what I'm saying. He does feel, with the half bakedness, he feels like that was like, okay, we needed to change the direction on them. Here's the role that he serves here. So he's played by Brendan Hunt, who's Coach Beard in Ted Lasso, by the way. So he's a good actor. Mm-hmm. But he's a delivery mechanism. That's why we needed this character, because the original version, from what we can tell in the teaser, it really feels like the aliens were kind of at. Sorry, let me try that again. The original version felt like they were, Olga was getting a call while she was at work dealing with this, like aliens just like, take us to your leader, like give us your leader so we can make him ambassador, sort of a thing. And then Elio was calling and they patched into the phone, and that's what got him abducted. Mm-hmm. So that's how the teaser presented it. So presented with that off the table now, we need a delivery mechanism to how the heck is Elio going to get abducted despite all of his his crop circled attempts. So we have a guy who, again, being half baked as it is, he comes up with the beacon message. Basically, we pulled a Jimmy Neutron. We have a message of please reach out, alien. We want first contact. Abduct me. Mm-hmm. Which is the same lesson of Jimmy Neutron, which is don't talk to strangers. So, we have the blackout, and which lands Olga in trouble, which, again, it's really more on Melmack than it is Olga, but I don't know. So, so it's very much an impulsive kid move, which, again, gives Elio autonomy. So these are choices that make sense, but albeit, a little half-baked in terms of how we,
well, just as far as, half-baked, as far as, I'm not going to say this character is as bad as the fucking Taika Waititi pen guy.
Oh, God, no.
But it's the same. It's a similar function where it's like we set him up to do one thing, and then in the third act, he does the one thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, he actually helped out at the end, So
yeah. Well, hey man, that fucking pen guy. I mean, he saved the day. Fucking hell, that's the worst character Pixar's ever made.
Okay,
Just
I'm not in disagreement that Watiti doesn't do that movie any favors, but I gotta admit, the pen gag's kind of cute,
all right, all
kind of
right.
cute.
I have never rewatched Lightyear, so I don't know. Maybe it would play better on a rewatch. Who
Plus, I
knows?
mean, I love that they build like the pen into the suit. I always like how it's like just kind of pops out of the.
All right.
Anyway, let's see. So the abduction itself. So we save Elio from an unjust beating, which was really messed up how that was going down. By the way, the fact they're wearing like alien masks, they're
I mean,
treating like a
that's like
skull
straight up like it
hazing
definitely
or
gave me
something.
like Karate Kid like skeleton costume vibes, you know?
Well, for sure, it's even more screwed up if you think about it. Again, we're not saying it like again. We throw out the line like boarding school. No, it's like sleepaway camp. We're
Because
again, we're
they're basically like taunting him for his special interest.
yeah, exactly. They're
Uh-huh.
wearing an alien mask and they're about to make him eat dirt, and then they basically they punch him. They punch the clone, but you get the idea.
Uh-huh.
So, but again, I really think we're drawing some like boarding school parallels there. We're basically trying to tell the folks, yeah, boarding school's not good, kids. It's just not.
Sure, sure.
Which again, again, I love that they're guarded though, saying, "Well, it's not boarding school." It's boarding school.
I mean, boarding school is more of like a UK thing, so I don't really know how relevant that is like nowadays.
Well, I don't know if boarding school is only the UK. I think there are like other boarding schools that are like stateside.
Yeah. Are you thinking more like the kind of like the troubled teen kind of boarding
Well,
schools,
I mean, I wouldn't call those boarding schools, but I think maybe it's somewhat in the same
kind
ballpark.
of in that same area? Yeah,
Because
yeah.
the idea you send a kid to boarding school if you don't want to either you need.
Because when I think boarding school, I think like Roald Dahl orphan.
Well, no, you're look. That is the go-to with boarding school, but like, let me put it this way: the American equivalent of boarding school is kind of private school. It's essentially what the
Okay,
American like
okay,
equivalent. So
yeah.
it's kind of
Or
private school.
military school, let's say.
Well, exactly. So
Uh,
schools, and the fact that she's like it's an Air Force base. It's kind of like in
it's
tandem.
essentially is military school. Let's
Yeah,
call it that. Yeah.
that's the thing. But again, it's kind of a kid friendly, at least a seemingly kid friendly. I think it's a mistake putting them like out in like these tents in the pouring rain, but that's just me.
Uh-huh.
Camp or no camp, it just feels like obviously like the kid's not doesn't like camping, so I don't know.
Right.
Anyway, okay, let's see. So the abduction happens. I love how we like freeze time, and I love the badge technology. Oh God, I love
Just
the badge.
everything visually about like I mean, I think the stuff on Earth visually is like it's fine. The background's fine. Everything is pretty much fine. But then when we get to the designs on either of the ships, and Doug Walker has said this as well, and I agree with him, is that either on Brad Garrett's ship or on the main ship, on the council ship, I love how like the council ship, you have like all these different designs for all the different rooms and stuff. The bathroom has a crazy design to it. But Brad Garrett's ship, on the other hand, is essentially like the same sort of like dungeon aesthetic, just kind of like all throughout the ship. So I love the contrast there. One ship is like very creative, very diverse, and then the other ship is basically just like dungeon aesthetic.
Oh yeah. So I mean, just again, I love like there's like a liquid technology kind of vibe to it. It's kind of like that gag from Galaxy Quest, where like the way they transport you get swooped up in like the flubber goo, and then you shoot into space. But yeah, I mean, just the fact that we have this badge that like organically forms it's a translator. It controls the gravity and the temperature. I love these are all plot points that we kind of need. And, like they serve, they serve very central parts of the movie, and they make sense. You would have these things again. It fits into the illogical logic that we also love.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, let's see. So we have like the supercomputer. They have the supercomputer. Ooh. Which again, I am wondering if it's a Toy Story reference to ooh.
Oh, it could be. It could be. I wasn't thinking about that. Yeah.
Then we have the really great gag, the Universal User's Manual, which is like this. It's in the shape of infinity and beyond. Sorry, just want to throw that in. It's in the shape of infinity, and the infinity symbol, and it has all the knowledge, and it is voiced by Bob Peterson,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Mr. Ray himself.
Yeah.
So yeah, so take the Communiverse. So the Communiverse is like the central hub for all the peaceful species. It's kind of like a galactic UN of sorts. And it's a really cool idea. I love that. Like the beginning, we saw we saw this like in the teaser too. But we get to kind of see it flourish a little bit here. Like we have like almost like the Senate pods from Star Wars, is like where they're all like kind of like they're
Right.
all housed. It looks like kind of like eyes almost. We have like I think the three main ones that kind of pop up, that kind of pop out. They actually have kind of like fun, like memorable kind of real things to them. Now, mind you, all the alien designs are really cool, but the three I think most memorable of like the numerous amounts of aliens on the council is we have Questa, who's like the the manta ray looking alien that can read minds. We have Helix, who's my favorite. Helix is the silly hedonistic little ambassador with the cute voice and like the little kind of like organic squiggle mustache thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Tellman is the one. So Tellman's like the monolith rock looking ambassador who he's not voiced by Pete Sohn, but he feels like he was voiced by Pete Sohn.
I knew it wasn't Albert Brooks, but it was kind of giving me a little bit of an Albert Brooks energy.
You know what?
Who is he voiced by?
Well, that's it. I don't know. He's not. I am. It sounds like Pete Sohn would have done like the scratch on him, but I was so convinced that Pete Sohn did the voice, but he's not. I think he's one of the. So one of the board artists did Helix. I don't know who. I assume a lot of board artists probably did the aliens, but I'm not sure.
Which, I mean, that voice in its own right is kind of like in a movie that would have been bigger, it would be like almost like an iconic kind of voice because it is very memorable.
Yeah, and I know I just love like kind of the helium laden kind of voice on Helix. It's just I don't know. Plus he had like all the he was the welcome wagon. He was like very much he spelled things out. And again, he's like I say hedonism because he always has like a drink in his hand. Oh, let me top that off for you. He's just so Tellman. He sounds like Winnie the Pooh to me, and I love that.
Oh, a little bit. Yeah, I could see that.
He has like that Sterling Howe kind of vibe, Anyway, so let's so we already so the room design is great. Like the bathroom's like this glorious like water park of sorts. We have like a lot of floating. It's the whole place. It's alien.
I also respect that there's no actual gross out gags involved with the bathroom. It's just a cool room.
It's just kind of like the floating. Oh yeah, this is just the bathroom, man.
Right.
It's the most awesome bidet you've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Lord Grygon here. So Grygon, we upped him from fellow ambassador, as we saw in the teaser, to full-on villain here, and he is voiced by the incomparable and the wonderful Brad Garrett.
And this is like maybe the best Brad Garrett performance since Ratatouille, as far as like Pixar roles. I mean, I really think he shines here. What I love about his character is that he is definitely menacing. I think he's genuinely like an effective Pixar villain, just for the sense of like how he affects the plot, the physical threat of him. And yet at the same time, there's going to be like really good like father-son character development with him. And there is, and it works really well.
Yeah. I mean, the moral with Grygon is that the simple moral with Grygon is that people are complicated and layered. I love that. So here's the dichotomy we have when this character's
weird, Dragon.
Yeah.
In a way, the Grygon arc is like vaguely like a little bit similar to like Toothless or Hiccup and Stoic.
A little bit, I guess.
Just in the sense of like, Grygon wants his son to be this great warrior, and of course, Hiccup does not want to be that. So, again, more Chris Sanders DNA, just getting in the middle of everything in this summer of 2025.
Sure. It's the year of Stitch, kids. So I love the dichotomy when we walk up on Grygon, just kind of causing trouble with the Communiverse here, where he is he on one end of it he's this warmongering, blustering, giant, awesome, carapace housed, bug guy.
Mm-hmm.
But and the reason he's like this is because his culture looks down on kind of softness and weakness, which is the idea like inside. It's a perfect visual metaphor for this character. He is like he's a cuddly larva in this giant, awesome, scary battle carapace.
Mhm.
So with that, it kind of embodies his character when we meet him. Again, he's blustering and everything. What does he want? He wants to belong to the community. All he wants is membership to a club. It's a very Larry David kind of like, he just wants to be a member of the. He wants to get into the exclusive golf club. That's all he wants.
Oh,
But
God.
again, he doesn't realize how scary it is when he's brandishing ion blasters and arm cannons and he's like shooting willy nilly. But again,
Is he basically like an unself-aware Maleficent?
I guess, yeah, kind of. That's the thing. He just wants to be included. He just wants to be like, we should be. He doesn't want to be excluded. So again, what I love is that again, it's the desire to belong, which parallels what Elio's going through. There's a connection there. It's the whole loneliness thing. He feels ostracized. He feels like he doesn't belong, and he went to here, and
So that is one scene from the original trailer that I do kind of miss, by the way, is the moment where Elio and Dragon are actually like bonding. Like everyone was shocked.
Yeah, I think the reason. Well, actually, no, that scene still works. Sorry, for a moment I thought we can't have that scene because that would imply that Glorden would have eaten his mother. But then I realized, like, no, that was just a me thing. Everyone was shocked. So that technically would have been fine, even if they kept that in.
Right.
I mean, we have the equivalent of. They did rework the scene, and we do have like him bonding with Elio briefly before it all goes belly up. But for a moment, they're skeet shoot. I love how they're skeet shooting with like the ion blasters.
Oh, and by the way, like in the original cut that those ion blasters, like that was very much like a dip situation in the original cut. It's gotta be, right? Like where the little alien creatures, like I don't know. I think that must have been a censorship note. Like, hey, we can't actually kill these little alien dudes.
I mean, maybe not censorship. Maybe it was just like a tweak for the betterment here. Where it feels honestly, I think it's funnier because again, it kind of symbolizes again. It's like if he just kills him, then it's just gonna be all scary. But if he's just shooting him and they make like a little poof sound, it's like shows that there's a soft underbelly that is integral to who this character is and what the arc of this character is. Where it's all about getting to showing that he's going to relinquish this scary facade to show that he's actually a really loving father.
Yeah, totally.
So I think it may have been an intentional thing. I don't think it was necessarily just.
By the way, the design also gives me a little bit of Oogie Boogie, just in the semantics of it.
Oh yeah, the semantics and the fact that it's like my bugs. He's all
right, yeah.
The larva. It's kind of like the original Oogie Boogie, which the very first version was just one big bug.
Right. I forgot about that.
Or maybe it was the second version. The first version was supposed to be Dr. Finkelstein. Then it was one big bug, and then it was like 1,000 bazillion little bugs.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but that's why I love that. I love how things go south here, where they have this parenting conversation where Elio's just kind of playing along, and then it's great kid logic that he's using. It's a kid's perspective on how he feels in the way his aunt has treated him, like sent him away to boarding school, and it was the best thing. It was for his own good, and it's like that kind of stuff. Send me away. I don't really think about it that much. It's like we're bad parents. It's okay.
Mm.
But again, I love that there is like some truth there, and Dragon's, we're kind of calling out Olga and Dragon's methods here, at least kind of the mistakes in the parenting, and Dragon reflects poorly to the self-reflection, and it does not end well.
Right.
But again, I love that despite this, the reason he gets so incensed is that, as we see, he really is a good father.
And that's what makes him a really good character. He's both very menacing, but also like genuinely like a nice guy where it counts.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about one of the big, presumably, I imagine if this character was in the original version, he was very small in the original version. He was more like maybe a side, like a very like an like maybe a gag.
That's what I was I could see him being just a gag. Yeah.
Yeah. So Glorden. So Glorden seemingly is at least from a marketing standpoint, is as far as we know before we learn actually what went into the making of the film, the biggest addition to the film. Which when I saw the second trailer, I was like, oh wow, this is very different from what we were presented.
Yeah, and I don't think the Glorden-Elio friendship is like the deepest Pixar relationship ever or anything, but
well, mind you, its competition's Luca, so there's
Well, I mean, its competition is pretty much like every Disney Pixar like male pairing, Mike and Sully.
Like, I forgot that you said I forgot that you said all the Pixar. I thought you meant like in recent. So I was thinking Luca, but you're right though. There's a whole
But the
haul.
one that the one that I think it is like objectively better than though is like The Good Dinosaur.
It's more boy and his dog though.
Yeah, but it's still just like the co-leads of the film. But The Good Dinosaur has like approximately one really good scene with the two of them bonding, and that's it. It's like the Shrek the Third of Pixar movies.
Oh, come on. That is uncalled for. That's
Well,
mean.
Shrek the Third also has approximately one really good scene of the two main characters bonding, Dragon, over a campfire, no less. It's quite similar if you think about it.
When's the last time you rewatched Shrek the Third? That's what I want to know. I don't even know if there's that much going on with
Shrek the Third I only ever saw once in 2007.
That's how it should be. Again, Shrek the Third, the anti-Toy Story 3. I like to think.
Yes.
So, real quick, there's one other thing I want to mention with the plot before we get into Glory. This is important though. With the changes, the movies, one big change, and then everything else is pretty much we've covered all the main stuff. So Dragon serves a very important plot point here. So we have a really nice obstacle here for Elio. So originally, the way the movie presented was that Elio, he plays along. He says like, "Oh, I am the leader of Earth," and everyone believes this. And again, Dragon was on the council already, and he was like one of the ambassadors he was going to befriend and everything and all that. So he the whole thing of like Earth was being put on trial. Presumably, I don't know if it was to be the Earth would be destroyed if this kid fouled up. I'm not sure, but the Earth was going to be on trials. The trials usually not good,
right?
So that was originally what the movie was going to be. The Elio was like, okay, there's some stakes here. He's going on with a lie here. We'll see how it goes. But now we've made it that Elio. I love how we emphasize at any point in this movie, Elio can go home consequence free. He can go all the way home. They can pour him home. He can get into the Diplo escape pod ship, and it'll take him right home. He said that clear as crystal. That's how it works. So Dragon is an obstacle that does not threaten Elio deliberately, but it prevents him from achieving his goal, and that's why he embarks, and that's why he gets in deep with.
And I also would like to think that on some level, he's just a kid that forms emotional attachments really quickly to people that are nice to him. I can't relate to that at all.
Well, you're also not fireproof,
right? One quick thing is that when I saw the trailer and they were trying to sell like the humor in this movie based on the whole like Earth thing, Dragon, that was a big red flag for me, and I'm glad that we don't like linger on that as much as I thought we were going to.
I mean, I will give him this too. In agreement to your point, Tiki. There are some other gags in that scene from the teaser that I think we kind of made the smart decision. You know what? Maybe let's not go as jokey in that. Like for example, we had the. I had run the tip of my tongue there. So it's not the Earth gag. It's the whole voice change. This is how I've always talked. Like we don't need that.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah.
That one we didn't need, and we smartly just we cut that. And to be fair, that always could have been like a teaser thing. We're not old teaser jokes making it to the end product. I don't know if that was just pure like a whole we're gonna completely shift in direction, but it feels like we're trimming the fat, I do love that we recontextualize the goodbye, I love you thing, where we actually gave it dramatic heft by the very end, which I'm not going
to lie. The last use of that, it got to me, Dragon. It actually made me tear up a little. I'm not, especially the use of like the language, like the language barrier with that.
Love it. Okay, we'll put a pin in that. We'll ring that bell.
Okay.
So Glorden full on here. Just nice. It's a nice kid dynamic. They become best.
Set up the clones too, but like before. We can set up Glorden too. But
I figure after Glorden we'll have both clones. We'll talk about cloning just after Glorden. So Glorden, nice kid dynamic. They become BFFs. I love that Glorden's in the know from the beginning, with the whole potential liar reveal thing that we do, which I love that we don't even fully do a liar reveal thing. It's kind of like it's.
No, honestly, it's like it is technically a liar reveal, but it's like we don't linger on it though. We don't have the big third act breakup.
Yeah, we don't do that. Well, we kind of there's a low of lows, but there's not a breakup.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the fact that we have our character's very grown up about how to handle the situation because, well, it's, he lied, but he's a kid. Of course he's going to lie, but we should have been smart enough to catch that lie. That's kind of like how we play that scene versus like a whole, oh, we're so betrayed. We believed in you, Rango. We didn't do any of that.
Right, exactly.
I don't mean to knock Rango.
No, but Rango probably is the closest like 1-for-1 comparison with this situation, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, Rango's a good movie, but you're right. The liar revealed stuff in that movie does kind of drag a little bit.
Right. So the idea we have Glory kind of befriends the son of kind of our bad guy here, but it's the kid's very lighthearted. He's a jovial bargaining chip in negotiations. But again, so fundamentally, I think what really bonds these characters, I think really works about their dynamic is that Gordon's lonely, kind of like Elio, where his dad is too busy and he's too serious. He's mapped out his future.
Yeah,
he doesn't want to be like his dad, and of course for good reason too. Because as we see later on, I was shocked by this. By the way, we have like the whole Iron Maiden built into the carapace suit. Like, oh wow,
it's a rather dark. It's a rather dark idea, honestly.
I think one of the funniest. I gotta be honest. I think one of the funniest jokes in the movie though is like we put the clone Gordon in the carapace in like the Iron Maiden thing, and it's like, oh god, this poor clone. It's like,
hey! we'll hold the phone on that, Dragon. We'll get into that. That's one of my favorite gags in the whole movie.
Okay. Anyway, so I love however, so we have fun shenanigans. We explore they could explore the communiverse. We have like a fun montage that they're throwing up after eating all the stuff. I love how Elio supports Gordon not wanting to be in the carapace. It's a really great brief scene where he says, "Gordon, do you not want to go in the carapace?" "No, I don't." It's like, hey, you're not gonna. I promise you're not.
And again, it's a little bit of a how to train your dragon thing, where it's like, how could you not want to kill dragons?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fine. So, I was kind of looking for like what the exact line is from that scene, because I couldn't kill a dragon, wouldn't kill a dragon.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so yeah, so the carapace is kind of like a symbol of like growing up and kind of growing out of childhood. I think is kind of what the symbol of the carapace is. It's pretty obvious, I'm sure, but just So the clone. Let's send in the clones, Tiki.
Oh my god, the clone stuff is by far the best humor in this movie. Like, generally speaking, I don't really think a lot of this humor lands all that well, but holy fuck, they were cooking with the clone stuff, Dragon. They were cooking with that.
It's such a neat idea that just shows it solves a story problem just so well. Like, how does this work? Like,
but there's so many different like elements to it that I love. Like, I love that we have the emotion of when Elio sees the clone with the ant later on, and he sees that the aunt like actually like genuinely enjoys having the clone around, and he's like, oh man, like that, like the clone is better than me. But then in reality, like when we actually cut to the ant, we realize that like, no, it's like the ant does not like the clone specifically because he is not like acting like Elio. Like, I love subverting stuff like that. That's great.
So yeah, it solves a story problem and it presents a great opportunity to do stuff like that. It's like easily. Again, so easily I love it's kind of like, well, we have the technology. Why couldn't we do that? So easily we create an almost perfect clone that is like perfect in every way. Well, with one exception, with Elio, which the program didn't account for, which I think is hilarious.
Right.
The fact that, well, does he not have again because they're alien, because of the whole alien physiology thing? I guess they thought like, well, yeah, he must not have another eye under there. Anyway, so just this, he's got a chipper attitude. He's a yes man. Just again the whole act. This is eventually the whole like the instruction just to act normal. I love how the clone calls out like the whole like the loneliness and everything. No, just act normal.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, again, there's so many funny bits. I love the bit where the aunt initially, like, catches him, like pulls up the eye patch, and he's just like, "Hi, we should talk."
Okay, so this is interesting. So, I was in the theater. again, I could just hear like this kid like kind of mentioning like this is scary, just like saying that like there's certain parts of this movie just like I'm not saying the kid was like crying in terror or anything, but like the kid just having a running commentary at not running throughout the movie, it's kind of these moments of like, why is it so scary and ominous? It's like just calling out like, oh god. Kind of right. I love the atmosphere of like this whole we follow the little hair to to Elio, to the Elio clone, and just like this is the reveal, and then we kind of make it less scary. Like, yeah, clone.
Right.
But okay, so the one minor gripe I have, and that's easily forgiven. It's just the whole thing. Like, I like that Olga catches on. I do question like, okay, maybe the microscope's a bit much. That she would be that down. I'm like, okay, I know exactly what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of like a convenient. We need a really cool way to show and basically show don't tell of like, okay, it's a clone. We're just going to show the hair, just kind of on the journey back to the clone, which tracks, but
Yeah.
So anyway, so kind of fun, creepy reveal. And then like the clone doing all these other things, like cutting off its own finger, then just like like putting it back on.
Right.
I love how casual his like.
Again, I am very convinced that this is all like Domi Shi stuff, man. It really feels like her sense of humor, her vibe.
It's a Dome Shi joke, and we have like he's trimming the hedges, and like the neighbor is passing by. He's like, "Hey, man,"
Right? Exactly. Yeah.
That's so Dome Shi.
All
right, so Glorden's clone.
Yes.
Seemingly, I love this idea, and this is kind of, I don't know if we call it a matchstick moment.
This might be the fucking darkest matchstick moment in the history of Pixar, Dragon.
God, it is I love this scene. It's such a great scene. So Glorden's clone.
Honestly, it might be the best scene in the whole movie. I love how it just like, because there is that moment where everything's wrapping up and you're like, okay, like where do we go from here? Like we've got like a whole act left of the movie. Like, how are we gonna continue the story now?
Okay, so here's where I thought it was going, and I was so impressed it went another way. Okay,
uh-huh.
I thought it was going to go in the direction of I thought it was going to be Qui-Gon was going to play with the loophole, like, okay, I will put my son in the carapace so he can exact revenge because I swore not to, but my son could.
Right.
And I thought maybe the clone would be like being agreeable. It's like, well, I'm being the best son I can, so I'm raging war and onslaught on this place.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That's where I thought it was going. It's the fact that again, I love that we went the direction that we went. Where it's one again, this clone solves all of our problems.
It parallels the stuff with the aunt very well.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
So, by the way, real quick, we should about one of your favorite jokes.
Yeah.
See, we put him in the carapace, and you think, "Oh man, this is going to hurt this poor clone," but he's okay. He just pops in like. Now, do you think that's because he's a clone, or do you think it's just it doesn't hurt the larva?
I don't know. I think you misunderstood. I mean that's funny in its own right, but the joke I was talking about.
You mean the twist? You mean the matchstick moment?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, but still, I don't know. I still like that joke.
No, that is a fun moment for sure. Yeah.
Because this is like a sigh of relief from the audience. Like, oh no, it's like oh thank God.
Right.
Anyway, but I love the acting on Qui-Gon, though. The fact that he knows, like, his son's like, yeah, let's pillage and burn and all that. It's like,
no, this is not my son.
And then he just, like, he uses, like, the ion blast. He just uses the arm can. He kills the clone on sight, like, bam! It's like, falls in, what have you done with my son?
And again, I'm sorry I keep harping on this, but, like, just how disposable the clones are.
Oh yeah,
it feels like such a Domeishi thing. It feels like a signature of hers.
And also, I don't know. We should apologize to Madeline Sharafi. And again, we've only seen her direct Burrow, and we don't really,
No, that's a good point. And honestly, Burrow is a hard one to even get a handle on her style because that's 2D. So
I want to say like Burrow really centers on shyness, so we kind of see a lot of that in the movie. I want to say maybe a lot of
sure.
Maybe a lot of the like anxiety and shyness, and I want to say a lot of the like.
I feel like thematically, she might have more of a touch, and then like as far as like style and humor, it's more Domeishi.
I think Domeishi
probably where we're getting the split.
I think so. I would say Domeishi is definitely a comedy punch-up. I think so. I think she had to be kind of like one of her big things.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so but yeah, so you're right though. It's still such like an awesome like moment of like, okay, he knows, and again, he
My
knows
jaw
because
actually kind of dropped, Dragon. I'm not gonna lie. I was not expecting this movie to fucking shock me like that.
I just love, and again, I love it's not just like for shock. It's the fact that he's such a good father. He knows a parent always
Right, right,
knows.
right. But also, it's like, let's just call a spade here. That clone is fucking dead.
Yeah,
Like the clone has like a very disposable lifespan, anyways, as we established with the Elio
oh
clone. But
yeah.
still, that clone is fucking dead.
I love, by the way, that this happened. Obviously, this clone, we're inferring that it's a painless death because we know later on it is, but we don't know
Oh,
that yet. So
right.
right now it's we completely flat out murdered a child. We murdered an alien child.
Like I said, I genuinely think it's the single most impressive story beat in this whole movie, I think.
Oh, by the way, I just want to shout out kind of a bit of a Star Wars reference, kind of. I love that the fireproof gag still was like a cute joke. The fact that like Lord, like so it looks so it's like a little Star Wars, little Jeff the Worm from Men in Black 2. We have like all the teeth and everything, but it's like he's nestled in there safely. Oh, it's kind of cozy in here. I've never been inside. It's a
Oh
cute
yeah,
joke.
that's fun. That's fun. Yeah.
It's a cute subversion. You think, oh man, it's gonna be a gross edge joke. It's actually it's like, oh, it's kind of nice in here.
I think that's a pretty direct Star Wars bit.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would say. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we have our quote unquote liar reveal. But again, like I said, Glorden in the Diplo ship, he goes to Earth, and he's again an option that Elio had at any point in the movie, which I think is such a great idea. But this has put the communiverse in hot water. Quest has read the mind, learns the truth, and again, because the mind read, it provide. I love it because she's reading his mind. She has full context, and there's no like the whole like lie. Every time we do a stupid liar reveal, is always like, "But you don't understand the mitigating circumstances to the lie." She
Right.
understands the whole
Exactly.
thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what makes this such a good liar reveal. There's like, well, yeah, she knows the whole thing, and she feels like, oh man, we really should have seen this. And even when everything's going to heck, she takes responsibility and she saves the kid. She saves the child, sending him home.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. So we go back to the beach, and we've economized our turnaround here, where he goes to the beach, and then right after that one scene, we're back to we don't drag it out for a few scenes. Like we gotta get the band back together. It's like okay, well, it's all happening pretty economically for a runtime.
Yeah, I think that works. And honestly, again, I think that all the stuff with Elio thinking that the sister is growing attached to the clone when she's really suspicious of the clone, I think that works emotionally like pretty well. But I also like the fact that we're not dwelling on it.
Yep, the aunt, by the way, it's not Nani.
Did I literally say Nani?
Well, you said sister.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. I am kind of struggling with that as we
Yeah.
go through this conversation. I'm sorry.
Let's break out the flow chart again. So the one with the red flowery moo that's Lilo, and this.
I'm just not quite sure who DG is, Dragon.
Okay, so DG is the young lord of Bruce Wayne who goes to be Robin. Robin becomes Nightwing. Are we connecting the dots?
Oh God.
See, DG stands for Dick Grayson. Not Dick Gregory, but Dick Grayson. Anyway. So back to the beach here. So Elio and Olga, they have their moment of reconnection. She understands now because she's seen like the clone, the alien. She kind of gets the idea. Okay, space is a real thing. Maybe I shouldn't have dismissed kind of his desire to go to space because it's in line with my desire to go to space.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So then we're on to the mission to save Glorden, which has a lot of ET parallels, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about the hilarious and creepy clone death.
Yes, you want to take them through it?
Yeah. So we so the clone again is it's kind of like if you've I've fulfilled my purpose, I'm going to self-destruct. Now, like, whoa, wait. can you self-destruct over there so we can get inside? So,
That's
and the
great. That's
way
great.
now this feels like a Dome Shi joke. Just the idea that we have like that we shoot in like this creepy horror movie style, as like a little
Right.
creepy kid from a horror movie, which I'm sure you were on cloud nine during this scene.
I mean, this movie's got a couple good horror movie bits. We have the bit in the woods with the bullies.
Yep.
Also the first appearance of Glorden.
Yep.
You know, where we're framing him as a monster. Anyways,
Yeah. Like we put him in the little swaddling web.
Exactly. Right. Oh God, dragon. Oh, being eaten alive by a giant spider. That's one of my big fears. All right.
What about being swallowed?
Just being in the web, all right? Being in the web and not being able to fucking move, okay? It's like, I know it's not feasibly ever going to happen in my life. It's much more of like a horror movie like fear, but it's viscerally terrifying. The idea for me, it is viscerally terrifying.
Well, Tiki,
so yeah, when we got the swaddling web, that did kind of like get to me a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, Tiki, that can happen. Have you not seen Gremlins 2? We're on the cusp of that, man.
Well, that's why I'm never going to go to a country with giant spiders, all right? Like, Australia is not a place I will ever visit.
Australia has giant spiders?
Australia has giant everything.
I know it has giant everything, but you mean like it has like notable giant spiders?
I think so, yeah.
All right.
Anyway.
Also has drop bears. Anyway. So just thinking like the clone just kind of melting and freaking the poor guard out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Glorden's badge has been damaged, and I love this where we're kind of getting every few words from Glorden, and it's this whole thing with the badge being damaged, he can't like heat himself, which is bad. So that means it's kind of the ET dying situation. So it's a rush. We've got to get him back to the communiverse and fast. So our third act, I really appreciate. I love to me, it feels like a big nod to Galaxy Quest, which I thought was a really inspired idea.
I've only seen Galaxy Quest like once, so I apologize if I'm not getting your Galaxy Quest references.
Well, that's all you need to know. Galaxy Quest in our third act, we need help from a man on the ground level, and that is the Justin Long character. The Justin Long character is like the fanboy of the TV show Galaxy Quest, so he knows the schematics of the actual ship that the real characters are on the real.
Basically, like the heroic version of Matthew Lillard from Scream.
Well, maybe I guess.
Matthew Lillard from Scream is like he turns out to be the killer, but he's also the character who is like in the know about the horror movie stuff.
Wait, you mean Jamie? I thought Jamie Kennedy was also like he knew all.
Jamie Kennedy was the other killer besides Matthew Lillard.
Oh wait, it wasn't Skeet Ulrich.
What?
Wasn't Skeet Ulrich the other killer in Scream?
Okay, it's been a long time since I've watched Scream. I could have sworn Matthew Lillard was one of the.
See, I could have sworn that I didn't even watch Scream. Or I just watched the making of Scream, so I could have sworn it was like Jamie Kennedy was like the horror movie expert saying, "Guys, no, you can't do this, or else you're going to get killed."
I could have sworn it was Matthew Lillard who was the horror movie expert, but I don't. Okay, let's. Dragon, I'm not a Scream expert because slashers aren't really my genre, so I apologize for making the reference. I probably should have been more confident.
Okay.
Anyways.
Okay, the point being you have like the expert about the sci-fi stuff on the ground level who's giving them guidance while they're in the midst of the sci-fi things. That's pretty much what we do here. We have a friend via the ham radio with Bryce, and also Melmac is more directly the Justin Long character because he's like full on like he knew life was out there and he's so eager to walk them through it. So basically, they're using the ham radio to get rid of to guide them through the debris so they can go to hyperspace and get back to the communiverse. So it's a pretty good climax.
Yeah. I like it. I don't think it's like a big highlight of the movie, but I think it's effective for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I like that it's by the way, I like that Olga gets to go to space, and it's kind of like her method of doing
That's
so.
true. Yeah.
She gets to be an astronaut like she wanted. And but again, it's also kind of the payoff to you're not alone, which everyone is kind of like rising to the occasion from the earth. They kind of help guide them through the debris field. That's kind of nice.
Definitely, yeah.
So we have
The internet is your true found family, Dragon.
God.
If our channel doesn't prove that, I don't know what does.
Okay. So we have the very effective, moment where he communicates sentiment without the translator. So Grigon sees that Elio's. I love that he sees Elio's friendship with Glor. He's crying over presumably his dead friend's body. And the father, again, he tears open the carapace, and we've set up that it like brings dishonor.
I like how it's like this is a predictable thing that's going to happen with Grigon. It's not like it comes out of nowhere. You can pretty much, as soon as they set up what this suit is, you can pretty much tell that this is going to be Grigon's like ultimately where his arc is going to lead. But it's still really effective when it happens.
We knew he was going to get out of that suit. We didn't know he had to tear it open like there was a permanent thing.
Exactly.
And if you look at Grigon's design, he is still Iron Maiden in that thing. So he has like all the pinholes in him. So he was still impaled by that thing on the inside. So this was a really heroic moment for him here. And again, I love that we set up that it's like brings dishonor to like be seen in like that weak larval state in adult form. So again, he didn't care. He wanted to save his son. It was a beautiful moment. And he swaddles him and he saves him. It's just displaying the ultimate form of vulnerability in which you're cuddling your son in front of all your men.
Right.
And so, and the fact that Elio during this scene, he doesn't want to lose anyone else. The desperation and please, I don't want to lose anyone else. I gotta, we have to. Gordon can't be dead.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. So so after this, we have our reconciliation here, and he's presented with the badge of like being an ambassador, and he chooses. He has the big choice of do you choose family on Earth or do you choose to be the ambassador? And he chooses Olga. He chooses to give life on Earth another shot.
Which I will say, pretty predictable ending, but it still emotionally lands. I'm not going to complain about it.
And the way we show it, and with the Carl Sagan of it all, and also the goodbye.
Yes, the Carl Sagan of it all absolutely freaking saves this ending for sure. I love the. I don't know. I mean, you're right about that. I feel like just him deciding to go back to Earth, that's predictable for sure. But what I love about the ending is that we do get the big reveal of the spaceship and the Carl Sagan of it all. I mean, that is Dragon. It's one of my favorite endings to a Pixar movie in a long time, honestly. Like it really kind of swept me off my feet at the very end there.
It's a great tip of the hat that they all say goodbye, I love you, while the translators like aren't functioning. They're starting to not function.
That's
anymore.
another really genius moment. And then when Glorden and Elio say their goodbyes and it's just completely garbled, like that's a really, really, really smart move. That's a really smart call.
So again, it's like in leaving, it's like he knows that he's never alone in both senses of the word, because he has Olga and he has like the people that kind of rallied for him on the planet. He's also got the alien, so he kind of knows that he's not alone, despite having felt that way. And I love that Cuesta kind of like expressed this to him, so he kind of walked away with something, even if he didn't walk away with the badge. But yes, I mean, it's the fact that this is really clever. We end without seeing like a tremendous shift in status quo. But again, the idea that everyone saw that spaceship, but we don't see how the world is impacted by that. We just see the reaction.
But that's the note that we end the movie out on, which is a great note. And it's not necessarily sequel bait either. It's just like, okay, like we have to just kind of like imagine where we would go from here, which is great.
Which, again, it's like we're taking Elio's lesson, we're applying it to the planet where we know we're not alone out there. Despite whatever we're going through, we're not alone.
I don't know, man. Just something about that just really speaks to me. I really dug it.
It was a quality ending on Sagan was like it was a chef's kiss move. It was just right. Then we have our end credits, our mid and post credits. Here with the epilogue of like, even though they're probably not going to see each other for a long while, if not ever again, he can still talk to Glorden on the ham radio. It's nice.
Right.
Then we have this is a first for Pixar. We have a teaser for a new Pixar movie, kind of Marvel style, with the Hoppers teaser at the very end.
I totally fucking missed that.
How have you
Jesus.
not? Come on, man. Pixar does do things.
Okay, in my defense, all right, I saw the movie at 10:30 at night, and the cleanup crew was wanting to fucking go home. Okay,
Come on, don't put. They know what the risk was.
Dragon, social anxiety is social anxiety. I don't fucking know what
Tiki,
to
let
tell
me. You want social anxiety? I'm gonna give you social anxiety.
God.
Okay, I saw How to Train Your Dragon, the live action remake. Okay, and there I looked on my phone. It said there was a there's a little tag at the end of the movie. All right.
Oh, and I know exactly what that tag is. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I sat there, and these guys, the cleanup crew says, "Oh, there's nothing at the end of the movie." And I knew they were wrong.
God.
So they
They're
told
like,
me.
This idiot is staying for nothing.
And that's the thing, though. They're saying there's nothing at the end of the movie. Now I don't know if that's because they actually don't. I'm saying, well, no, I'm not telling them this. I'm like, I know for a fact there is something at the end of this movie. It's probably not much, but there's something at the end. I'm going to be kicking myself.
There's something at the end.
I'm sure it's like, listen, look, I know it's not going to be anything big.
Right,
I'm sure it's not going to be anything big, but it's like, you know what? I want to see what it is.
Oh, God.
So I'm not going to let you dissuade me so you can barely clean the seats anyway. I'm not going to let you. Anyway.
All right.
So point being, so here's what the end was. We saw like presumably like a brain swapped lizard like on his phone, hitting a bunch of emojis, and so essentially it's like probably something that's going to make a lot more sense when you see hoppers. But still, this is the first time they've done kind of like the actual tease for the Pixar movie, very like directly, and say like a little Easter egg. It's like, hey, here's a little taste of what the next Pixar movie is going to be, and that's like Hoppers coming, 2026.
No, that is cool, and I am very much looking forward to Hoppers. So we'll see how that turns out.
Now, remind me, have you gotten the We Bare Bears at all yet, or no?
No, and Dragon, we have to talk about this, but like off air. But like, I have literally not had time to do any TV stuff this month. It's bad.
Well, I point Tiki, next year you should try and make a point of trying to do some
like
Bare
before
Bears.
Hoppers comes.
Yeah.
Out. I'll try.
Anyway, point being, that is the end of the movie.
All right. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts, man. Again, it makes me feel good when we get a Pixar movie coming around like Elio. It just feels like I'm watching a movie, I'm engaged, I'm having a great time with it. There's behind the scenes stuff that you're kind of seeing in the cracks of the movie, which I usually would be a bad thing, but not in this case. It just enriched the experience for the animation geek in me. I just, the movie's got good themes, not just musically, but it's got good themes to it. It was. I have to assume it was still. I mean, look, Molina still got a credit at the end of this movie. He's still there. I think it's odd how they did his credit, because I think his credits like on like when we get to like the black, like kind of black and white kind of parts of the credits, like it says filmed by Adrian Molina, but like we have Domeshi and Shrafi and getting the credit like solely on the when the thing comes up. So I'm not sure how I feel about that, but it does make me wonder how different is the end product of the movie from what he set out to make. Like, I'd like to think this is still like kind of his personal like kind of statement as a Pixar film, but clearly we can't. Unfortunately, now we can't fully say that because he's off the movie onto another project. But the concept, the themes of this movie, it feels very well written and very at least well formulated, which feels like something Adrian Molina would pitch. So I do feel we did get like a lot of Molina in this movie. But again, at the end of the day, we have an entertaining Pixar film that a lot of people missed out on, and I'm sure when it goes to streaming, they're going to see it. I hope they do. It's a shame that Pixar is not getting the attention it's not getting the attention it needs with the original stuff these days, and streaming and all sorts of other stuff in the world is going to put a damper on that. But it'll be a while before we're back. Hopefully, Hoppers will kind of change that. But my sincerest hope is that people will eventually see Elio and they'll say, "Man, we were so stupid for not seeing this movie. We got to see Hoppers."
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that, with my final thoughts, I definitely think that this movie is primed to kind of be like a cult classic. And honestly, Dragon, it's the type of movie where it's like, and we saw this firsthand through like my reaction to the trailer, like, this is a hard sell for a movie, just generally speaking, just even on the premise alone. This is like, it's the kind of concept that it's like, you don't really, it's hard to do an elevator pitch for exactly what this is, right? But I honestly feel like when it all comes together, I don't think it's a perfect Pixar movie. I don't think it obviously doesn't reach the heights of something like, like the golden age, like a Ratatouille or Incredibles or Up or whatever. But I think as far as the 2020s output with Pixar, the only movie that I would pretty definitively put above this is Luca. And honestly, even with Luca, I do actively kind of dislike the first 10 minutes or so of Luca. And there's really no element of this movie that I actively dislike. So honestly, Dragon, it might be my favorite of the 2020s, especially with that ending. Like, for me, it's pretty neck and neck with Luca at this point, honestly. So yeah, very underrated film. I think people definitely need to give it a chance. I think people definitely need to need to get their heads out of their asses when it comes to like, but it's not making enough money at the box office, so it's got to be a bad movie. It's like, no, it's just a hard movie to market. All right, so okay, so that's about it. Not a lot of activity in the comments, which frankly, Dragon, I think kind of bodes for what we're talking about. This movie being kind of underappreciated. But thanks to Eli from Little Blue Productions for showing up the few times he did. Let's see, Dragon. We got a debate coming up this week. You want to tease that a little bit?
Yes, folks. So you notice we're throwing around Chris Sanders a lot this podcast, and you're in luck. We're doing a debate on Lilo and Stitch.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And we're gonna be covering some live action, some animation,
bit of live action, a little bit of animation, a
little bit of everything,
a little bit of parks, even.
Yep, but all Lilo and Stitch, I promise you.
All right. Okay, folks. Well, that'll do it for us tonight. Have a good day. Okay, I love you.
Okay, bye. I love you.
Okay, bye. I love you.